Welcome back to Beyond the Accent. Today we're diving into something that hits so close to home for me: perfectionism in speaking. Let me take you back to my early days here in the United States. I'll admit, I avoided opening the door to the mailman because I dreaded the idea of saying anything that could be judged. Like baristas with their signature small town curiosity, I would quietly pray for them to just hand me my coffee and move on to the next customer. I didn't want connection. I wanted to be left the heck alone. And it wasn't just fear of judgment on someone else's part, it was me judging myself constantly. I'd get stuck in my head, replaying every word I said, obsessing over whether it sounded good enough, smart enough, American enough. And the irony is, Roman's classmates at Babson Business School back in Wellesley, which is where we spent 2 years straight, that would be 2013 through to 2015, his classmates who I spent a lot of time with, they seemed to really enjoy having me around. Like, he would come back with these kind comments about how much fun they had hanging out with us and how they wanted me to come back. And there I was thinking, if I am not tense, if I am not perfect, I won't be the good sport that those classmates must be wanting for themselves. So tension and hypervigilance it is, right? Must be all the perfectionism of mine that gets them to like me. So on we go. And looking back, I now see how much pain the perfectionism caused me. And it robbed me of presence, of connection, simple joy of simplest conversations. It sucked all around. But more importantly, I now know that it doesn't have to be that way. It really didn't have to go on like this for so long. And if you've ever felt like your words had to be flawless before you open your mouth, or if you stayed silent for fear of saying the wrong thing, whatever that is, this episode just might be for you. Together, we are going to unpack why perfectionism doesn't serve you, how it holds you back, the mechanics of it, if you will, and most importantly, how to break free from its grip. No cheap sounding platitudes, no generic advice, but real specific stuff. Because you don't need to suffer as much as I did. No one needs to suffer. And we're just going to have to explore a freer way to speak, one that is rooted in self-acceptance and genuine ease, not the kind that you have to fake. So, let's start by exploring why we feel the need to speak, quote unquote, perfectly. For many of us, it comes down to fear, right? Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, and fear of being misunderstood. Those are pretty universal. And there's this belief that if we don't speak flawlessly, we'll come across as less intelligent, less competent, less than. And here's the truth. That mindset is a trap, and when we focus too much on being perfect, we lose sight of what really matters. And as far as I'm concerned, that would be communicating and resonating, conveying and bonding, sharing and connecting. Trite as that may sound, right? But that is the friggin' truth. I used to obsess over grammar and pronunciation, convinced that every little mistake would stand out. But over time, and it took me a long time, I realized something. Most people aren't at all focused on those minute details, and they most probably care about grasping what you're saying and relating to you on a personal level. So let's talk about how perfectionism actually screws us over, why don't we? First, it can freeze you into inaction. Have you ever wanted to speak but stayed silent because you couldn't find the perfect words, whatever that is? Boy, have I done a lot of that. Perfectionism convinces you that if you cannot do it flawlessly, well, don't even bother. You shouldn't even try. Just sit there and suffer through whatever conversation is being had because you're not even part of it because you won't allow yourself. Second, it makes speaking ridiculously harder than it needs to be. So when you're analyzing every word in real time, your brain is stuck in overdrive, and it's like trying to run a marathon while carrying a suitcase full of, I don't know, bricks, stones, rocks. So you'll move forward, but it's unnecessarily exhausting and not nearly as effective. Third, and this one hits deep, it skews your relationship with yourself and hence your audience. When you demand perfection, you forget what makes your voice special. Instead of showing up as the messy, unique human that you are, you're locked into this performance mode, trying to micromanage every syllable. And it kind of sucks being on either side of that process, as far as I'm concerned. You don't want that for you or the listener. And here's the kicker. Speech isn't supposed to be the polished, unattainable ideal, right? It's a living, breathing thing. You gotta let it move. It's about sharing ideas, right? Building understanding and letting others see you. The real value of speaking lies in its ability to spark resonance, create moments of recognition on various levels, right? To create disagreement, right? Those things come from authenticity, from the real you-ness, if you will, and not some unattainable impeccability. No one wants the impeccable. If anything, as far as I'm concerned, we don't like the seemingly perfect people. They're annoying. So, let's call perfectionism what it is. It's a brick wall. Its sole job is to stop you. And when you fixate on being flawless, you miss out on what speech is really for. I'm going to say it again and again. Engaging, resonating, and just being heard. And listening is very much part of it. When you're busy thinking about what you're about to say or what you just said, you're not listening, right? So the beauty of communication, it lies in the messiness. So that's where the magic happens. Let's embrace the messiness. Let's want the messiness for once. Okay, so we've just explored why perfectionism shows up and how it holds you back. Now let's talk about breaking free from its grip, and not by fighting it head on, trying to battle it somehow, but by approaching it in ways that are smart, doable, and grounded in self-compassion. Yes, I'm going to say it. I'm going to introduce 4 ways of doing so today. Number 1, stop thinking big and start thinking small. Stephen Guise, in his How to Be an Imperfectionist, talks about the power of mini habits, right? Perfectionism loves to whisper, if you cannot be extraordinary, don't even bother. So we freeze, we don't do nothing. Mini habits counter that by shrinking the goal, the giant goal of unattainable impeccability, right, down to something that's so tiny that it feels impossible to fail. You just can't. It's just not quite plausible. So here's how we can look at it in speaking. Commit, I love that word, commit to saying one sentence during your next conversation. That is, don't drill it beforehand, but just show up and be like, okay, one sentence is all I got to do today, right? I know it might seem off when you're thinking about it, but it's about the level of commitment. When it's so small, you can't screw up. What happens is this: once you start, you often end up saying more because the pressure is off, right? So small little wins, they add up, and before you know it, you're building momentum and things are happening, and it's just flowing, and you cannot even stop yourself no more. You just want to talk. 2, reframe mistakes as data, not failure. This is where Catherine Morgan Scheffler comes in her Perfectionist's Guide to Losing Control. She also writes about how perfectionism creates the false binary, right? So flawless success on the one hand, catastrophic failure on the other. The truth is what? Every mistake is a piece of data. That's how it can be treated anyways, right? It's feedback. It's not an indictment of your worth. Let's say you mispronounce a word. Instead of spiraling into shame, you can ask yourself, okay, what did I just learn from that? Maybe you learned that slowing down helps with clarity. Maybe you've learned that saying that very same word again because something stopped you from saying it accurately the first time round is the way to go about this, and just move on and move forward. Maybe you once again have rediscovered for yourself that what matters more is the context and, you know, how intelligent the person sitting before you is. They're probably going to make sense of what you said anyways. And if not, they can ask you a question, because that's also something that a person that's trying to connect with you will do. Or you just, maybe you've been mispronouncing that word, and this is how the word actually goes. Mistakes are guideposts, and if you avoid talking, you'll avoid mistakes, but without making said mistakes, you can't really move forward with the things that you didn't used to know. Now, what else? Here's a wild truth. Chasing perfection actually makes you less effective. Catherine Morgan Scheffler calls this the perfectionism paradox. The more you strive for an impossible ideal, the more rigid and self-critical you become, and that drains your energy and it stifles creativity. It just makes you miserable is what it does. The only antidote is to shift your focus from how do I sound into how am I making this person feel? This subtle shift can revolutionize how you approach speaking. It's no longer about you, right? You prioritize engagement over evaluation, and you unlock a freer, more confident version of your own voice, and things just work different, and they hit different for everyone involved. Now, finally, this one is big. Perfectionism thrives on harsh self-talk. It convinces you that being hard on yourself will make you better. Research shows the opposite. It does. It does. Self-compassion is what actually fuels growth. The not doing anything does not fuel growth. And you being harsh on yourself will probably push you into not doing anything. So, that's just the vicious cycle you want to get out of. Next time you're nervous about speaking, try this. Take a deep breath. Place a hand on your chest. Am I being like a yoga teacher right now? Why the heck not? I don't hate that image of myself. And remind yourself, I'm allowed to be human. Humans are likable. People that seem perfect are not so great. You don't want to be that. And your voice matters with the imperfections and all of it. So it's not about tricking your brain. It's about giving yourself the kindness that you deserve, people you talk to deserve. Just, invite yourself to also feel that, to ground yourself in the kindness that's the bare minimum for things to work out. That's it for today, y'all. If there's one thing that I hope you take away from this episode, it's this. Perfectionism isn't a badge of honor. It's a weight that you do not need to carry. We've unpacked why it shows up and how it holds you back and ways to break free from it, whether it's starting small, reframing mistakes, embracing the paradox of imperfection, the not getting anywhere because you're too hard on yourself, or anchoring yourself in self-compassion for once. The path forward isn't about fixing yourself. Really listen to this one. It's about meeting yourself where you are right now, for starters. And that is a really good thought to sit with. Another thing I want you to think about is, what would it look like to stop holding yourself to an impossible standard? Like, let's just dream for a bit and start seeing yourself as already fully adequate. I hope this episode encourages you to step into conversations with less judgment and more curiosity of various sorts. You don't need to sound perfect to be impactful, and to be a good listener and a good communicator. If this message resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Send me a message, share this episode with someone who might need a little reminder that their voice matters, imperfections and all. Do whatever feels right. And don't forget, new episodes drop every Sunday. That is the official schedule now. Next time we're diving into code switching. So switching from one language onto another and going back and forth for whatever reasons. So make sure you tune in. And until then, take a deep breath. Let yourself hear and be heard. And your voice belongs out there. Messy, magical, and meaningful. That's the trifecta I want to go with today. So talk soon, you guys. It was really nice talking to you today about the things that can be different. Have a good one. Bye now.